Welcome back and happy Friday to everybody. I'm going to do a quick update. I don't have much time and I'm not really going to do any workout here today because I don't have a lot of time. And I didn't do a video yesterday because my throat was sore, but it's feeling better today. So went to the doctor and I do not have the Mexican beer virus. Like I said, I have tonsillitis and sinusitis, you know, all the fun, all the time. That's how I like to be. But, so, taking some antibiotics and hopefully it'll kick it out quickly and not kill my stomach at the same time, because antibiotics tend to do that. Anyways, not that you wanted to know all that, so let's talk about what you do want to know. Take a look at the snake beans are starting to get, see how long they're starting to get, and those aren't ready. Let me see if there are any that are getting closer to being ready. These are getting close. See how long they are? This is my hand. In comparison, that's the top, and it reaches all the way down. So they are doing really well. There's more blooms up here, more blooms down there. The only thing I wish, I do need to come out here and hoe around the edges pretty soon, but the only thing I wish is that I had a trellis so that all the vines, you can see the vines going along the ground down there, that they would have somewhere to go. I mean, I don't know what to do with them right now, so I'm just letting them go. So I'm sure it won't hurt anything. Who knows? It may come over all the way over and start wrapping around a different teepee here. But I didn't want to take the time to build a trellis or spend the money to build a trellis. I wanted to get stuff in the ground. So that's what we've got this year. So you can see right there, right here, there are two beans starting to grow there. That's what they look like when they start. But these things are blooming. Like there's some blooms there. There's a bloom down there. Hopefully it doesn't totally crowd out my tomato down there. So pumpkins are doing good. I'm having to keep them under control because they're running everywhere, as you can see. So I just come along and put them back in the row. But they will totally blanket this area. And so that'll be good. Hopefully they will bloom pretty soon, so we can start getting some pumpkins. I had to hand pollinate them some last time I had pumpkins, but hopefully I don't have to do it this time, but if I do, I do. As my daughter's pumpkins are starting to run. Move it over just to keep it in the row. Here are her sunflowers. So they will continue to grow. And everything's looking pretty good. I don't know if I can see, it just doesn't like to wrap, but look, that's almost like picture perfect right there. Look how pretty that is. And there's a stupid ant. That's not a fire ant. I think those are carpenter ants. But they will get in here and get the nectar. So as long as they don't damage the plants, I don't care. Carpenter ants aren't as annoying as the fire ants. If you're in Florida, try planting some okra. I don't know what it is about okra, but try planting some. You will have a fire ant city. And it is ridiculous. But gotta come over here and show you sad news. You see these new flowers I planted over here. I planted them in memorial of, or in memoriam, I don't know how exactly you say that, of my poor papaya tree. Something before had bent it, and I came out when it was a little bit smaller, and it was bent all the way like over. But when I straightened it back up and staked it so it would have some support, but in that case it wasn't snapped, it was just bent. Well, yesterday came out and noticed that it was pretty much snapped. There was one little part hanging on, and maybe it could have survived if I would have tied it back up, but it was a pretty clean break. So, and the leaves were starting to already get droopy and stuff like that, which makes me think that it was losing nutrients and stuff like that because it couldn't circulate them. So I just pulled it up, and a friend of mine gave me these. Don't know what they are, but they're pretty flowers. So I planted them out here because she said that they will kind of bush out, and I wouldn't mind like this whole area just is a bush, because I would like to have, like I've said before, I'm trying what I can to bring bees onto the property, and a lot of the stuff I've tried hasn't worked. There's sweet potatoes. I needed to come and dig some of those out. And my acerola tree is looking good. The bee balm is just wild over here, but it doesn't attract any bees. Maybe an occasional solitary bee, but not really. So, yeah, not much going. About the same as last time. I may come back and do a car talk. I just have to be careful, because the more I talk, the more that makes my throat itch, and then I'll go into a coughing fit. But I thought about doing a talk, a little chat about garden equipment and what I like to use. I've kind of talked about it before in some of my videos, but I might do a chat video about it just to talk about it a little bit more in depth. What I use, what I would recommend, and you can take it for what it is. The Jamaican cherry is doing well. You can see the leaves. This is what it does. Some of the leaves will turn yellow and fall off, but then it starts producing elsewhere. So I thought that it was because it was in trouble, but it's not. But something keeps coming in here and rooting. I'm assuming that it's an armadillo, because that's what they kind of look like that when they root. They just root down looking for insects, but they don't pay any mind to the fact that I've got stuff planted here. So hopefully it hasn't damaged the roots. I don't think so, but hopefully not. We've got a couple. Oh, excuse me, I had to yawn. We got a couple of. There's one, and there's one, and there's some flowers. So it's doing well. If I notice that something's not right with it, I'm gonna have to try to bury it better, I guess. But yeah, that's about it. See how thick. Once it does that, it's really hard for me to even weed in there. So if weeds grow, I kind of have to just let them grow. I might be able to get my swage hoe in between, but it's not too bad. The weeds aren't too bad right now. I watered it yesterday. We've had some dry weather, but we're about to have some wetter weather because we've got that tropical storm Ada that's going to be headed our way. Luckily, it's as of the last time I saw, it's not supposed to be anything more than a tropical storm, which equates to just rain. Look at how pretty that is. There's a picture perfect. That one and that one, picture perfect cranberry hibiscus. They're so pretty. And this thing is, I may have to stake it up because it's really leaning. I don't want to, but I'm gonna have to. I don't know if this came off of, yeah, I think that this one, the living ones that are still here, came off of this dead one here. So I'm probably going to cut, I don't want to cut too far down because you can see it coming off down there, right there. But cut this dead part down some because it's really not doing anything. And then I have to take this and secure it to the T-post. So, and then I've got the ones that randomly have popped up, which, like I've said before, it's fine with me. So, anyways, I may or may not be back later with a chat about garden equipment. And if so, I'll see you then. If not, I will talk at you later. Alright, so let's do this chat that I was talking about earlier. Talking about gardening tools, what are good tools to use, what are the tools that I like to use, and this is not talking about power tools. Obviously, you've got things like rototillers and tractors and various things like that, but this is talking about hand tools and what kind of hand tools I like to use. One second, let me get a drink. To start with, and I've shown this in one of my videos, a broad fork. I recommend, it's called the Meadow Creature broad fork. You can get it on easydigging.com. If you are wanting to till up an area and do it fairly quickly and easily, the broad fork is your friend. It is so easy to, especially in the Florida sand, it's so easy to use and bust up the soil, bust up the turf, the grass and everything. I highly recommend that. And the one good thing about the broad fork is that it has 1 foot tines on it, whereas your average rototiller is like 8 inches, something like that. So it's going to get down deeper than a rototiller. So I highly recommend getting a broad fork. It's worth the investment. They're not that expensive, but it's worth the investment. And if you don't do anything crazy with it, the Meadow Creature broad fork will last you forever, as far as I'm concerned, because it's made out of, everything on it is metal except for little stoppers on the end of the handles that are made out of rubber. So, but it is very, 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 very good for hand tilling, and it gets things done a whole lot faster than an average garden fork, which a garden fork is not a bad thing to have. Garden forks can till the ground. Garden forks have a lot of other uses. So I'm not saying don't get a garden fork. I'm just saying a broad fork, it works a lot more efficiently to create a garden area. The next thing, obviously, any gardener is going to need is a shovel. I mean, how can you be a gardener without a shovel? So I have one that I just bought at Home Depot a long time ago, the best, but it's not the worst either. You know, you can get all of this sort of stuff on easydigging.com. They're a great website. They have a lot of good things, a lot of good sturdy, dependable tools that won't break the bank. But I haven't bought a shovel off of them simply because I already have one and I don't feel like spending money on another one. So yeah, but yeah, a shovel, a good shovel. Now there are two kinds of shovels. You can get the flat head shovel, I guess they call it a flat head, and then you have one that's the stereotypical garden shovel that's kind of like got a point. If you're not sure what to get, I'd recommend just to get the one that has the point. I think it works a little better than the flat one. But yeah, and then another obvious one would be a hoe. Now, here's where things, you got some variety. There are a bunch of different kinds of hoes. You've got your regular garden hoe, which is what everyone thinks of when they think of a hoe. You've got grub hoes, grape hoes. I don't know what they're called exactly, but they're like triangular shaped. Those are good for digging, like if you want to make like a furrow or a row to plant things in, you know, that would be good. You've got the swage hoe like I've got. You've got wheel hoes. You've got, I mean, all kinds of stuff. What I recommend, and this is, well, let me just put it this way. I'm not going to tell you what I recommend necessarily because I'm not the expert on gardening, but let me tell you what I have. I have a regular garden hoe, and that's what I use for keeping, like, my annual garden. I use it to keep the edges back. Where the grass wants to come in, I keep the edges back with it. That's really what that's good for. I mean, you can use it for, it's kind of an all-purpose hoe, but when I'm wanting to really hoe up a large area, that's what I use my grub hoe. And it's got a very large head, and it's got a very large, you know, so it's got a very large blade, and it's heavy. You'll get a workout using it, but it can, just its weight alone, and if you sharpen it, you know, just its weight alone will be able to bust into the ground and dig up. I used it to do some of my to do the rows that I have in my annual garden. It works really well. Then you have a grape hoe, which is, I think it got its namesake and is used in vineyards, and I think it kind of is the same, except it's a little smaller than a grub hoe. And then you have like the triangular hoes, which I kind of already said those are good for making like furrows and stuff like that. The swage hoe is what I use when I'm wanting to just kind of hoe in the chop down weeds in the row. I don't use it to take down big weeds, but if when weeds are starting to pop up, you can come along and kind of just almost like sweep the ground with it, and it'll take out the weeds. Works really well for that, and it's extremely light, so it's easy to use. You won't get as fatigued. A wheel hoe is good, especially if it has. There's a hoe that it's kind of like a loop, I guess. Maybe it's called a loop hoe. I'd have to go back and look again. But a wheel hoe you can take along and run. You can't really do it when there is when you've got a row that's planted. But if you're hoeing in between rows, it works well for that. Or if you're preparing a row, you can take the weeds out, you can go along, and it almost is like a wheelbarrow. It's got a wheel on the front, and then it's got the two handles, and then it's got the loop hoe, and it kind of rocks as you use it. So you can kind of push it back and forth, and it'll take the weeds off. I know EasyDigging.com has one. Planet Whiz Bang has one. Planet Whiz Bang is another good, a really cool website. That guy's come up with some very practical, kind of like the why didn't I think of that inventions, you know? So I would give him a check out his website. He's got some cool stuff. He's got some, and he's on YouTube. He's got some videos you can go watch of how it, excuse me, of how he does things. But yeah, I have the swage hoe, the grub hoe, and the garden hoe. Just a standard garden hoe. And I'm fine with those. That's what I have. As of right now, they serve me well. So I'm not really in the market for another one. But there are other things you can get. But really, as long as you have like a good sturdy shovel, a good sturdy hoe, a fork or broad fork, and you might want to get like one of those little seeders where you go along and it puts the seeds down in the ground. That's not a necessity, but it could make your life easier. I don't have one. I'm not going to fool with it. I really think once you just keep to stick to the basics. Stick to the basics. You can't go wrong, and try to find good quality. Don't go cheap. You know, I know it. For me, it's easy to go. It's tempting to go cheap because I don't want to spend a lot of money. But these are investments. You know, think of your gardening tools as investments, not as an expense, because it's an expense in the very short term. But it is an investment in the long term, a big one. And if you get good quality ones, you'll have an investment. You'll have it for a long time, and it will just keep paying you dividends, keep paying you dividends, keep paying you dividends. So it's definitely worth not pinching the penny. I'm not saying go out and buy the most expensive piece of gardening equipment you can find, because that's stupid too. I mean, unless you want to do that. If you want to do that, go for it. I don't have the money to do that, so but if that's your thing, then have at it. But don't chintz on gardening equipment. Get some good quality equipment from a good quality company, because it will pay you back big time in the long run. Another thing that is imperative, you can go to Home Depot or anywhere like that and get a file. Just get a standard, cross grit or whatever they call it. Get a standard file and sharpen your tools. I never thought about this before, and then I started when I started reading David Good. He mentioned that Steve Solomon talks a lot about sharpening your tools to make it easier for you to work. And it does, it helps immensely if you sharpen your tools, and it takes a while. It takes a while to get them where you need them, to get them to be that exact sharpness. Once you get it there, all it takes is some tuning up every now and then, But it is a big difference when your hoe can just cut right into the ground, as opposed to you having to slam it into the ground. Big difference. And again, I apologize for all the coughing, but my throat just gets itchy, and so but yeah, you need to sharpen, even if you have just cheap tools. It'll be harder to sharpen them. They probably won't hold their edge as well, but you need to at least try. It'll make them even cheap hoes, cheap tools. It will help. Get a file, sit down, and just spend some time sharpening them. Oh, I can't forget one thing. Another thing that I think is imperative for gardeners is a machete, a good quality machete. And I don't recommend going to Home Depot and buying, like the Fiskars brand or something like that. Go online, get you a good quality machete. I love my machete. I can use it for chop and drop. I can use it when I cut down those sticks to make my bean teepees. I use my machete. I didn't use an axe. I used my machete. And the one I've got, it took an edge really nice, because when you get them, the edge is going to be blunted, because pretty much it's going to be blunted. But if you have a good quality one, it will take an edge very nicely, like the one I have did. And man, that thing, oh man, it's such a good tool. It does so many things for me. So get you one of those. I would say look for, obviously trowels are good to have when you're planting something small. If you don't want, I would almost say skip a trowel and get a garden knife, because they work like a trowel, but they're sharp on one side, and they cut through things better. You can use them to kind of cut roots and stuff out of the way. You can't really do that with a trowel. You can sharpen it and it will do that, but I like working with a garden knife. And I don't remember the brand of my machete. I think the brand of my garden knife is Black Iron. So yeah, go look that up. But machetes are a fantastic investment for the garden. But kind of the last thing I would say is don't fall for every kind of garden tool that you see, because I have bought garden tools that I'm like, oh man, that looks so cool, and this is what it's supposed to do, and all this other stuff, and I take it home and it is a piece of junk, and I just wasted my money. So if you're on a website, if you're in a hardware store, that sort of thing, and you're walking through and you see all the really cool tools and stuff, don't be fooled. It's always best, in my opinion, it's always best to stick with the tools that have been used, that are ageless. They've been used by your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, and on and on and on and on and on. Stick with those. Your shovels, your forks and or broad forks, your various garden hose, that sort of thing, machetes, that sort of thing. Those are gonna do everything you need. You don't need that fancy thing that's supposed to kind of hoe or aerate the ground, or supposed to be so easy. I had something like that, and it was a waste of time, an absolute waste of time, and waste of money. I completely wasted my money on it and kicked myself for buying it. It's gone now. I threw it away. It was that bad. I didn't even try to salvage anything. I didn't even try to use it for anything else. I just said, I'm done. This thing sucks, and I dumped it in the garbage. So stick with the classic tools that will be with you if you get good enough tools and take care of them, there's a chance you may be able to pass them down to your children. So, you know, they don't make tools like they used to, but still, yeah, it's a great investment. So don't be fooled by all the fancy stuff out there. And don't chintz. Make sure you're investing in quality tools. I didn't mention like watering hoses and watering cans and stuff like that, because I figure that's a gimme. Like you're gonna have to have some way to water your garden, so I don't need to mention that. So yeah, that's about it. If any of you have any tools that you found handy, you know, leave it in the comments. That way we can all check it out and see, maybe I don't know of something that's out there that I need to have. But hopefully this was helpful to you, and hopefully now you'll have an idea of where to start picking up your tools and what you need to pick up. Again, this is stuff that I have and I use. You may want to have something a little different, you know, and that's fine. But this is what I like to use, and what I would recommend to anyone who came to me and asked what kind of tools would you get. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, share it, and I will talk at you all next time.